Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Remember, if you love film, gaming, or television content, please consider clicking that subscribe button because it is finally time to talk about the long-awaited prequel to Game of Thrones, and that is House of the Dragon Season 1. So, let's get into it. If you didn't know, I've recently become a massive fan of Game of Thrones this year after watching the series for the very first time. I've started reading the books also, and they are absolutely fantastic. I have a review for the show, so definitely check that one out. I think for everyone with House of the Dragon Season 1, there was a little bit of nervousness with this show because Game of Thrones, after being hands down one of the greatest TV shows of all time, blew its final season in spectacular fashion. I also have to say that trying to avoid spoilers, not just for this season, but what the whole show is eventually going to become, has been like walking a minefield because people who have already read the book feel inclined to just tell everyone about it. As someone who hasn't read this book and wants to find everything out from the show, I find it really annoying that these spoilers are just everywhere. But anyway, I digress. Because as someone who is very sensitive to hearing spoilers, for those who haven't seen House of the Dragon yet, I will be talking full spoilers, so consider this to be your warning.
You have been warned.
Also, watching this felt kind of old school. To watch an epic show like this in a weekly format lets things sink in a little more differently, and it made this feel like a completely different viewing experience compared to what we have been accustomed to during the rise of streaming. And I think I like the way that this show was released. Now, into the actual show, I think generally I don't like this as much as Game of Thrones, and I'll let you know why, but I mostly thought that this show is still very great, and I really look forward to the future of this show.
I'm very, very excited.
This utilizes similar pacing to the first 6 seasons of Game of Thrones, where each season always starts off a little slow, and then it picks up at the right time and continues that momentum right through the season finale, which this does really well. I think a lot of this starts picking up around episode 7, and the quality remains so high and leaves on a moment that had me really excited to see how season 2 will continue the story on. I also think that in terms of technical prowess, this is right up there with Game of Thrones. Technical elements like production design, costume design, cinematography, and score are all incredible in creating a sense of atmosphere that only these Game of Thrones shows can produce. As I mentioned earlier, I really love the way this story unfolds. It is a little bit of a slow burn in the beginning because it is building a lot of the groundwork, and it creates a lot of tension between characters that were once allied with each other. The dynamics change so much over the course of one season that it is honestly quite remarkable. I feel like most of the season, the peace between the two families, the Hightowers and the Targaryens, is only sewn together due to King Viserys, who even he admits is a boring king, but he is a successful one because he has maintained a peaceful Westeros for quite some time. Both these sides of the family are attached to him and only him, so you feel that as soon as he is out of the equation, all hell will break loose, and that is essentially what happens. I mean, literally an hour or so after he dies, Otto Hightower, who really becomes the villain of the show, starts implementing schemes he had for a while so that his family can be attached to the Iron Throne, and therefore really becomes a traitor to Rhaenyra, who has been the heir of the Iron Throne practically her whole life. I think Rhaenyra will be the first character I want to dive a little more into because she is the main character and she definitely has the largest arc of the show so far. The season goes through a lot of her life, and you see her become this person who wants power, but doesn't really understand what that means, to being a true leader who definitely should have the Iron Throne. In her younger years, you can definitely see that she could become someone to really start a war because she is rebellious and very selfish. And I thought Millie Alcock does a good job of playing this version of her. This all turns into a far more mature version who is played by Emma Darcy, who I think does an incredible job at playing this character. The way that Rhaenyra evolves was very nice to see, especially the time when we hit that final episode. of the season where everyone is willing to jump into war to take back King's Landing, and she is a little more reserved and actually wants to make a smart decision on how to approach this first. The final shot of the season of her finding out that her kid got murdered and the look on her face tells you so much that everything that she was going to plan has gone out the window, and she just wants all out revenge and to start that war. And it was an excellent performance on Emma Darcy's part to really capture that emotion. Then we have who ends up becoming Rhaenyra's husband, Daemon, who is definitely my favorite character in the show right now. I've pretty much enjoyed everything Matt Smith has been in so far. I thought he was great in Last Night in Soho, and as bad as Morbius is, he is 100% the best part of that movie just for the meme. The character might be the best performance from Matt Smith because at times he doesn't do a whole lot of talking, but he manages to say so much just from the expressions on his face. Even at the lowest points of the season, Daemon is consistently great, and I love how he was written and how he evolves. In the beginning of the season, you think that he is going to be the villain of the whole show, as he is constantly rebelling against King Viserys, who I might add is played really well by Paddy Constantine. He always seems to have ulterior motives, and you can never really trust him. I loved a lot of the scenes with him early on, like the episode against the Crab King in episode 2, where everyone is at a loss as to how to defeat him, and Daemon just goes in himself and kills the character in the most badass fashion possible. He seems to evolve a whole lot more when he eventually aligns with Rhaenyra and they get married to strengthen the bloodline. He seems to be very protective of his family against the Hightower bloodline. I love the episode after the big family dinner where one of Alicent's kids goes to attack one of Rhaenyra's and Daemon stands in between them, and once again, just from the look on his face, you know that if Aemon takes one wrong move here, he will not hesitate to kill him. I'm still not 100% sure if Daemon is a good guy yet, because I still feel as if he is waiting for the right opportunity to take the Iron Throne. I even feel at times he's only aligned and married to Rhaenyra because he can take some power for himself. He's always willing to go into battle, and he is one of the first characters to urge Rhaenyra to start a war between these houses. I love how mysterious he is, and I cannot wait to see what happens to his character in the future. George R.R. Martin has even been on record saying that he is the best character that he has ever written, and that to me is some really high praise. Then we have the Hightowers, who mostly seem like the villains of the show. Alicent is someone who was best friends with Rhaenyra at one point, but due to the politics we see in Game of Thrones, they become rivals and now enemies. She becomes much opposed to Rhaenyra, being the heir to the throne, and even more so as she has her own kids, as she feels like her kids should be the true heirs to the Iron Throne. This relationship boils so much to the point where Rhaenyra is held at knife point in one of the most brilliant scenes in the whole season. As the years go by, they manage to come to a place where they restore some semblance of a friendship. Then Viserys dies, and Otto, her father, starts this scheming against Alicent's wishes. And now we are at a point at the end of the season where both Daemon and Rhaenyra probably want to kill her at this stage of the season. I feel a little bad for her because it seems like she just doesn't want to fight anymore. I think what this show will end up focusing on, especially after this season, will be the kids from both Rhaenyra and Alicent. This season almost feels like a prequel to the prequel a little, because I don't think these parents will have as large of a role that they had this season. The kids enter about halfway through the season, and from there, I think they do an excellent job of making us invested in their rivalry. I think Alicent's kids were far more interesting as characters, especially after Viserys dies. Firstly, you have Aegon, who is a very irresponsible person who just wants to party and have sex, but has been given responsibility. As with Otto's scheming, it has made Aegon the king of Westeros. The scene where he is made the king officially, I thought was beautifully shot. I love the shot of him raising his sword in front of the people. and showing that after being a little hesitant to take the throne, he might enjoy this power he has now. I think he has the ability to turn quite evil as this power gets to his head, and I can almost feel like he can become a less hateful version of Joffrey. The other one is Aemond, and after not having a dragon aligned to him, he ends up taking the biggest dragon alive and making it his. After this event happens, he goes from having a lot of self-doubt to being one of the most arrogant characters in the show. This arrogance gets in the way as he accidentally murders one of Rhaenyra's kids at the end of the season after he loses control of his dragon. You can tell from the look on his face that that was not his intention at all, and that he has potentially began this war.
Well, if it was a mistake, it was a wonderful mistake.
I still need to see a little more from Rhaenyra's kids at the moment because they don't really interest me all that much right now. The only one I was starting to get interested in was the one who ended up dying, so I can't wait to see the things that the other children will do in response to this murder. Now, there is one major thing that this season did that really annoyed me, and that is the time skips. These skips stopped this show from being almost better or on the same quality as Game of Thrones in my opinion. I get that they wanted to cover a lot in the one season, and I don't know if the book does a similar thing, but I would have much preferred if they just did another season that would fill these gaps a little better. Having these major time skips throughout the season was very jarring, and you would almost spend a whole episode just trying to play catch up, and then it would do it again in the next episode. It made some consequences feel pointless because there are certain dynamics and drama that it felt like could have been explored further, but it was just kind of left to the wayside. I also think this show hits its really high points when it backs off on an episode without a time skip. I found the end of the season to be really gripping, and that is because there is a direct continuation from the previous episodes, and the constant building of tension about this upcoming war actually stacks up on what was built in a previous episode, and it was made all the more compelling. Overall, while I don't consider House of the Dragon Season 1 to be as good as some of my favorite seasons of Game of Thrones, it is far better than the final two seasons, and I think it also gets off to a better start to what Game of Thrones did. I'm really excited to see how they will progress, and it is such a shame that we're going to have to wait another 2 years before we get to see a second season. I honestly wanted more from this as soon as it was finished, and that is a great thing to do. I'm going to give House of the Dragon Season 1 a 4 out of 5. I'm also quite optimistic that this will find a better ending than Game of Thrones did, because they have all the source material they need and they don't need to make up something. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. Please tell me in the comments below what you think of House of the Dragon Season 1. A lot of time has passed since it has ended, so I think it's safe to talk full spoilers in the comments below. I know I was quite late on this one, but after going to BIFF and seeing a bunch of exciting releases lately, it was hard to find time to get this review out. I really appreciate all the support that this channel has gotten so far, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.